Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Well, good evening everyone and welcome back here to the Ray Esports Racing League here on Apex Racing TV. My name is Ron Mons. Joining me in the commentary booth is Charles Bichelle, and in the virtual production hall, however, old buddy Joshua Wilkie. Now tonight we welcome you all to yet another Roval here from Season 11 of the Ray Esports Racing League, that being the Roval at the Homestead Miami Speedway. It's a fun track that we saw some great racing at last season, and with the same race cars here tonight, I'm sure tonight will be no different. Now Charles, to pass it off to you here real quick, with such a long run-up until we get to that start-finish line here on that start-finish straightaway, how crazy do you expect the finishes are going to be here tonight?
Well, the last time we were here, Ron, it was pretty crazy. It was we ran here last season with the MX-5s and the Spec Racers. And the Spec Racer race was pretty dramatic. Obviously, we talked about how much of a tow you can get from those cars, and it was basically a battle to see who was going to be the first car to get onto the oval section and get the disadvantage of not being able to get the tow. And we ended up having a winner. I believe Skip Brock Jr. came from third place from about 3/4 of a second back to win at the start-finish line. So pretty interesting racing. Got a small field tonight, so only looked like 10 cars or so. But these Mazda Miatas, the old spec, with old tire modeling, should make for some interesting racing. I think this is obviously not the most technical track that we're going to visit during the season. It's basically kind of the Homestead version of Daytona road course. So a few little small tight corners, but mainly it's all about just getting the draft and good runs in and out of corners to maximize your momentum and your speed.
Yeah, this track is fairly simple. This tight, twisty infield section is going to be the biggest killer when it comes to these drivers trying to find pace here in this qualifying session and trying to limit mistakes in the race that we have coming up. Now, you mentioned there, Charles, that we have a somewhat smaller grid. Currently 7 cars have posted a time here in this qualifying session that we just started not very long ago. However, just because we have a somewhat smaller grid does not mean we're going to have a boring race. We were looking at the times during practice, and we have some pretty good battles developing here, and I think this race will be no different. The main one that was keeping perking my interest, so to speak, during that practice session was a fight between Miles Crab and Tom Laurie. They're currently locked steady in a championship fight here in the Spec Miatas, and they're separated by about less than a half of a tenth of a second there in that practice session. Man, that was a lot of syllables there in the span of about 5 seconds, but I think I mentioned there the championship results, and we may take a look at the championship points right now that we still have about halfway to go here in this 15-minute long qualifying session. The Spec Miatas have been very close, and you can see there Miles Crab at the front at 59 points on the board, and only 4 separating himself and Tom Laurie there in P number 2. Then you've got Raymond Blethen farther behind, who won't be joining us. Skip Rock Jr. in P number 4. Yanshi Lin in 5th. Josh Justice, who we're following right now, is currently in P at number 6, and the number 99 car currently 41 points on the board, so he'll look to try and gain some advantages on the drivers not very long ways up the road when it comes to the championship fights and the drivers that won't be racing here this evening. But that gap there, only 4 points so many rounds into the season. We're at round 6 here of season 10 of the Ray Esports Racing League, and the fact that the front 2 in the Spec Miatas are only separated by 4 points just shows you how intense this series always is.
Yeah, absolutely. It's still a very tight battle up front. Obviously, we talk about week in, week out, we talk about how these are most of the group in here are real life SCCA racers in some form or fashion. So we have weeks where some of these guys just can't make it because they're either preparing for or coming home from the racetrack and having to get some repairs done on their cars and things like that. So they come in when they can. They come in, but when they come in, they're ready to race. So this battle between Crab and Laurie is pretty tight. Justice and Spolman are going to get a chance to move up the grid a little bit because we've got a couple of people who are not here. So this should make for some very exciting racing, and it's going to be obviously every point matters when it comes down to the championship.
And it's still pretty close right now here in this qualifying session. 9.5 minutes on the board right now. Miles Crab is at the front in the 131 car, taking a wide line there, coming around the oval, I believe, trying to do some quick, I nearly said geography in my head. That would be the east side. Actually, no, that'd be the west side, I think, of the oval here. Turns 3 and 4 there on the oval layout are turns 9 and 10 here for this road course layout that we will be running here this evening. Miles Crab, you can see him shooting his way through turn at number 1, cutting his way into the infield. That is a real tricky corner to get right there. I think I've said this a lot on Apex Racing TV broadcasts, but it's just often the case. It's an apropos statement to make. It feels like you're threading the eye of the needle with the needle attached to a Saturn V rocket traveling at escape velocity. There is no margin for error coming through a section like that, and even in these Spec Miata race cars, which aren't the fastest in the world, you're still barreling through that section at a very high rate of knots. So Miles Crab, as well as the rest of the drivers here in this qualifying session, are going to have a tough task on their hands just to get through turns 1 and 2 here on this lap scot-free.
Yeah, it's kind of the downside of these rovals that we have that we get to use, like Daytona and Charlotte and here at Homestead, is the road course part of this is really just kind of an afterthought. It's just one of those that these were purpose-built NASCAR tracks. They were designed to be a tri-oval or or just an oval, as we talk about tri-ovals with the kind of the dog leg at the start-finish line. And so the transitions off of that oval banking down onto the infield, the road course specific part of it, is not always the easiest in the world. It's very tricky here at Homestead, where you just get off that banking and the transition down to the flatter surface will sometimes just kind of send your car off into a place that you don't necessarily want to go.
And what is kind of funny to think about when it comes to this road course layout here at Homestead, it's one of the non-modified versions here of the many track layouts that Homestead has had over the years. When it first opened back in the 90s, I believe it was the NASCAR Truck Series, I think, was the first ever race at this track all the way back in 1996. It was meant to be a downsized Indianapolis oval. It had 4 corners, very much akin to Indy, completely flat as well, had little to to no banking. And then it came to this layout that we have here, but with far less banking than we have now. Then you can see as we were riding on board with Stevie Ray heading into turn number 8, the hairpin, the final real corner on this layout here, the massive banking that Homestead has to this day. I mentioned there that turn number 8, it's a final real corner, and we saw a parking lot develop in the Spec Racer Ford race last season here when the cars were racing at this track, and I think tonight may be no different. We'll just have to wait and see, and I'm looking to see what kind of lines these drivers are taking when it comes to running on the oval. We saw some drivers running close towards the wall in the races we had here last season. So, Charles, do you think that's going to pop up again here with the Spec Miatas?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Turn 8, the final corner coming back onto the oval, and turn 1, the first corner, are probably the two most critical, because that's where you're going to get, you've got to set those up to get the maximum speed on the oval part of the track, obviously the fastest part of the track. And so you'll see some extra lines coming through there. You'll see some people run low and you'll see some people run high, but it's going to be the cars that are out front are going to be kind of dictating that, because the cars behind are just going to want to hit the slipstream. So they're going to just kind of follow the leader there. So we may have if it's anything like we saw in previous, we may have 2 or 3 lines with multiple cars just trying to do some bump drafting down through there to maximize their pace, and then trying to get in front of the other group before you get down into turn 1.
These races are short enough whereby pit stops aren't a factor when it comes to a lot of these drivers, unless they run into some major issues during the race and have to pit for repairs. But when it comes to strategy in these Ray Esports Racing League events, it's mainly just the on-track strategies, when to push, what kind of lines to take, and really how to drive your race car and manage your race. That's always a huge factor here in these races. So we have less than a minute left to go here in this qualifying session. We're getting into the meat and potatoes. We're riding on board with Stevie Ray, currently in P at number 7 right now as things stand at the moment. It's still Miles Crap at the front at a 133.837, so we'll see if Tom Laurie can try and take a bite out of that advantage to possibly move up into the pole. So these drivers are starting what's probably going to be their final laps here. That was, I believe, Joaquin Effinger exiting the pits there on the inside. Thankfully, again, with this series, considering we don't have pit stops to worry about, actually, no, that was Joaquin Effinger. He was down in the pits. However, he wasn't the driver that was exiting the pits that I saw in the corner of my eye. Again, thankfully, with this series, we won't have to worry about pit stops in this Swine-Man race we have coming up, which may be a good thing, because that pit exit is pretty much entirely on the racing line and maybe a little bit sketchy if you're in one of these Spec Miata cars. But the checkered flag is out here in this qualifying session. Andrew Love, currently running in P number 5, is looking to try and improve on his time. Did he get to the line in time is my question. I think he got the other. I don't think he grabbed the checker flag there, so I think Andrew Love may have one more lap out of him here, Charles.
It kind of looks that way. It looks like he's still on the gas and trying to get another lap in. So it looks like, at least to me, it looks like he's still got another lap left in, but then just takes that way wide. It just said, you know what, that's not going to work. So we'll go back to the pits and we'll end that. So it's going to be interesting. The starting position's probably not as important as it would be at, say, like a Summit Point, where you want to be up front at the start of the race, and so you can kind of dictate the strategy from the front. Here, I think there's enough room. Obviously, it's a very, very wide track, especially on the NASCAR oval section, that you've got plenty of room to make moves. Obviously, we talked about how there's really only a couple corners. That little turns 3, 4, 5 section is probably the trickiest and tightest part of the track. Get through there clean, and then it's pretty open for the remainder of the lap. So, yeah, the starting position won't be really critical. And looks like you're getting a pretty nice tow off these cars in front. Looked like we were looking at Stevie Ray earlier with Andrew Wozencroft behind him, and he made up 4 or 5 car lengths on the straight. So there's a good chance to be able to pick up some time and some positions just from riding in the back for a little bit.
I think these Spec Miatas punch a pretty big hole in the air. We'll just have to wait and see how strategy and slipstream play a role in this race that we have coming up. Mark Sherman rounds out this qualifying session in P number 9. He just took the checkered flag there, so it looks like he's not going to improve too much on his position. Fairly close field, it must be said. Joaquin Effinger is a little bit farther back of our pole man Miles Crab. However, if you look at in the hole, you've got Crab and Laurie pretty close there. Wozencroft not very far behind. A lot of these drivers, there's no real huge gaps when it comes to a vast majority of this field. Really, the gap between Ray and Buttermore in P7 and P8 is the biggest gap that we have in this field. And speaking of, I think we'll be able to get the starting grid for you in just a couple of moments' time. The checkered flag came out in this qualifying session about 20 minutes ago, and now we got the starting grid for you. It's going to be Miles Crab starting this race from the pole. Tom Laurie in P number 2, Andrew Wozencroft and Josh Justice will be completing your second row. Then it will be Andrew Love in 5th, Seth Spolman in P number 6, Stevie Ray in P number 7, Wayne Buttermore in 8th, and then rounding out your field on the back row of the grid is going to be, as my OBS is acting up on me, Mark Sherman and Joaquin Effinger completing your 10-car grid here for the Spec Miatas. Fingers crossed that we still have some very exciting racing there. That was a very strange moment for me. I was trying to move my track map out of the way, and it just was not cooperating there. So I think iRacing, well, actually not iRacing, it will be just Internet Gods as a whole, not very happy with me here. But Charles, 10 cars we mentioned earlier on in this broadcast, we're still expecting some pretty good racing. And what do you think is going to be the main point that we need to look at when it comes to how these drivers are going to race here?
Yeah, it's probably the draft, at least as far as the oval is concerned. And yeah, there's a few gaps in the qualifying times, but it's still there's some cars that are clumped together. So we may see three distinct groups of battles on the track, which is still good. You know, we'll have a battle up front, and then everybody that's driving will have somebody they can race with that are going to be right at their same lap time. So that should make for some interesting racing.
We've got some people, the usual suspects in the YouTube chat, giving their thoughts on the racing that we have. Trent Kramer saying that he can't join us here tonight because his wife has been in bed sick all day. I am mildly sick myself, so I can relate to that on a spiritual level. It's very unfortunate, though, the fact that I am sick, because with my sickness, it's now only one species away from humans, so that's not going to be ideal for my dad, who I think will be the next one to pick it up after me. But I think while we're on this pace lap here and going to grab the green flag in just a few moments' time, we should thank one of the wonderful sponsors that we have here from the Right Esports Racing League, that being Grassroots Motorsports. Built for true sports car enthusiasts, Grassroots Motorsports has one mission in mind: to be your personal guide to the sports car world. Whether it be online at grassrootsmotorsports.com, in print, or at the track, the racers, mechanics, and car nerds at Grassroots Motorsports will take you behind the scenes of the racing world and teach you how to improve your car. Grassroots Motorsports has a taste of everything that you may want to have this hobby that we all know and love. Whether you want to hear stories about 1,000 horsepower track monsters or cool street cruisers built in a driveway, they have got you covered. Grassroots also has a collection of staff-maintained project cars and a catalog of articles as well. Articles breaking down the ins and outs of cars written in a garage with greasy hands rather than typed from behind a desk in a prim and proper office. If you'd like to read, learn, and be a part of the story, head on over to grassrootsmotorsports.com. Grassroots Motorsports is a proud partner here of the Ray Esports Racing League and a sponsor here of the Spec Miatas, so we're going to grab the green here in just a few moments' time. Usually in a NASCAR Cup car or even an Indy car, going a little bit farther back towards the early 2010s. It's going through turns 3 and 4 on the oval. Doesn't feel very long, however, here in these Spec Miatas, especially on this pace lap, it feels like a 1,000-mile wait. We're riding on board with Miles Crab right now, coming through the high banks right now. We're going to see that Porsche pace car veer off the track in just a couple of moments' time, and then the field is going to be in the hands of our pole sitter Crab. This is going to be a dogfight between these two, separated by 4 points in the championship, and starting on the front row, the fight between Crab and Laurie is going to be hot between now and the checkered flag. The green flag is at. The drivers are on their way. That's a pretty good start there from Miles Crab. It looks like he's going to be leading them heading into the kink of turn number 1. Meanwhile, we've got some drivers shuffling for position farther behind. Josh Justice locked steady in a nice fight between himself and Andrew Wozencroft there heading through turn number 2. Wozy with a big curb hit there on the inside of turn number 2. These drivers manhandling their race cars heading through the twistiest section on this entire track. Not a whole lot of runoff area as well, so if you make a small little mistake, you are going to be in for a world of hurt. Heading into turn number 6 for this first lap on the first time by, and it's going to be Miles Crab leading them, and no drivers going for an attempted overtake there heading into turn number 6, which is without a doubt one of the best overtaking opportunities on this entire track, but so far so clean here, Charles.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a nice, easy start by everybody. They all got lined up single file, and as you can see, there's already a little bit of bump drafting between, or at least attempted to, between Wozencroft and Justice, and so we'll start seeing these, as we've seen with the qualifying lap time, we'll start seeing this pack break up a little bit, and we'll see how low.
Oh no! That is a big moment there as bump drifting gone terribly wrong there. That was Andrew Wozencroft going for a half spin coming out of the hairpin of turn number 8. And who was that hit him? I think it was Andrew Love.
I think it was Josh Justice. I think he was behind him. And yeah, just Wozencroft maybe just got off in the grass a little bit and kind of started the slide. Oh, is that right? Maybe you're right. Maybe it was. I think it was
Spolman, actually.
Spolman, actually, you're right. Yeah, so yeah, just got off in the grass and just brake, try to check up and catch the car. And Spolman had nowhere to go. I mean, you're all trying to get through that on the right line, and just didn't quite work out for him.
That's kind of like the team speed skating events. Whenever they switch whatever the speed skater is, and their teammates just give them a push there to give them a little bit of an advantage. I think that's what may have happened here. We're gonna ride on board with Seth Spolman heading out of turn number 8 there. That's oh man, that was a big moment for Wozencroft, and that's a pretty significant back end damage as well. That Mazda is frowning at the back of the shot there, and I can't necessarily blame that car because that was a pretty big hit. And I could see some damage on the front end of Spolman's race cars as well. So with these MX-5s, which they don't have many aerodynamic features, really. The windshield and the rear view mirrors are the biggest aerodynamic features on these spec Miata race cars. Despite the fact that there's no front or rear wings to try and tweak here, that damage on both of those race cars is going to slow them down quite a lot here, Charles.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime you get damage on the front or the rear, you're going to get a little bit of aero loss, and at least they're not running pop-up headlights, so we can at least say that they're not completely unaerodynamic. So it'll be just a little bit of work for Spolman and Wozencroft to make up some of the spots they lost because of the incident, but they should be able to. They got some good cars in front they can draft off of and work their way back toward the front of the field.
So the field is actually broken up a teeny tiny bit. We're following Stevie Ray, who's currently running in P number 5. And you got Wayne Buttermore looking for a move around the outside. Is going to end up losing a spot there to Spolman. You can see that massive front end damage on the front of Spolman's race car. However, Spolman is still feeling quite racy, trying to break his way back into the top 5 right now. Currently, Crab and Laurie are separated by about a half a second, and that's 4 seconds to themselves and Josh Justice behind in P number 3. So currently in this race, we're seeing the cream of the crop rise and some drivers with some damage already. We're only 4 minutes into this 20-minute affair here, and we've already seen a lot of shuffling. We're seeing some more here. Andrew Wozencroft looking to get the move done around the outside of Wayne Buttermore, heading through turn at number 6, now through the kink of turn at number 7. They still may be side by side when they come into turn number 8 in just a few moments' time. You can see that massive damage on the back of Andrew Wozencroft's car, acting like a little bit of a spoiler there with how high the front, actually I guess that'd be the rear deck lid and the rear bumper are hiked up there on Wozencroft's car. It looked like his MX-5, his Miata I should say, was given a wedgie there. That is a very sad looking MX, I keep saying MX-5, it's a very sad looking spec Miata car there that Wozencroft is driving in P7 right now.
Yeah, it doesn't look good, but like I said, if you're gonna have damage, you probably want it on the back as opposed to the front. Man, actually, I won't say that it's going to give him any extra downforce on the rear of the car, but from just being jacked up a little bit. But as long as the front's still pretty clean, you still be able to get a good lap out of the car. And so, I think that, of the two, probably Spolman came out the worst of that. Although, neither one of them are probably, feeling real great right now.
It's very strange, the front end damage on Spolman's race car. It looks kind of like someone just dumped a bunch of tar there on the front of the race car. Good Lord, that was very close between the front two in this race right now. Miles Crab nearly got a bump there from Tom Laurie as he went into the hairpin of turn number 6. Laurie feeling quite racy right now. These two have been separated by less than a half a second throughout a vast majority of this race. They're still incredibly close, and we're seeing some action right behind them. Andrew Love and Josh Justice battling for that final podium position. Love going to be moving into that P3 spot, and Stevie Ray now involved in that fight as well. So this is a 5-car train that we have right now. Spolman farther in the back. You can see that tar patch on his front hood there. Not ideal. Not a best look there for either of those two, who are actually now side by side going onto the flat out blast to end off this lap here at Homestead. But right now we're getting a good idea as to what the racing is going to be like. It's a 100-mile-an-hour game of leapfrog from all of these drivers. Love pulling to that outside line and is going to get his metaphorical doors blown off here. Actually, no, these cars do have doors. They're actual doors blown off going down the flat-out blast. However, it's still not over yet. The slipstream very powerful here in these spec Miata race cars, and he's still within striking distance of the two right in front of him. Stevie Ray going for some rally action there. Now he may get overtaken here by Josh Justice, heading into turn number 3 here, heading into 4 now, side by side. Who's going to prevail in this fight? We've got side by side for both these drivers, 2 by 2. Spolman and Love going side by side, as were Justice and Stevie Ray. Now Josh Justice moving back into that P3 spot. But with them battling as hard as they have, they've lost about 5 seconds to the back of Tom Laurie and Miles Crab farther up the road. So it shows you how just going side by side and battling as hard as these drivers has, it makes it feel like you're dragging an anchor in these races.
Yeah, absolutely. You get side by side, you start slowing each other down during the corners, and that's why we've got back to a pack of 5 with Buttermore back there trying to close the gap down. As long as they keep doing that, it'll invite Buttermore to make up some of that time as well. So what they're really hoping for is they'll stay, if they stay in line and let those two guys out front, Crab and Laurie, if they start fighting, then that gap that they've made will start closing back up.
Just have to wait and see how these battles shake up. I don't have a good feeling about Josh Justice right now. Him and Stevie Ray going side by side as they ran their way through the final corner on this lap, technically broken up into 2 thanks to the whims of the iRacing track map that were supplied. But still, it was a nice move and fairly textbook stuff there from Stevie Ray to move back into that final podium position. Still battling very hard, still very close on track. Only time will tell what this fight results in. Stevie Ray once again runs wide heading through turn number 2 there. Now Josh Justice looking to get back past, and now Seth Spolman feeling quite racy as well, nearly going off track yet again there was Stevie Ray. I think he dumped 2 wheels off into the dirt, rounding his way around turn number 3, and Spolman going to be moving up into P number 4, and I think Stevie Ray may be at risk of losing his top 5 spot to Andrew Love here. Maybe 3 wide action heading into turn number 6. We aren't even halfway through this race and we're already seeing 3 wide racing with these MX-5s. You absolutely love to see it. That was 2 Andrews and a Stevie there as they went nearly 3 wide heading through the kink of turn number 7. Stevie Ray still running in that final top 5 position right now. This is our main action on track. It's currently Miles Crab and Tom Laurie are acting fairly tame up in the front. Meanwhile, Andrew Wilsoncroft getting a move done there on Josh Justice going into that final real corner on this track, the hairpin of turn number 8. Nicely played. However, they're going to be side by side and dragging each other down like they're dragging a parachute behind them. That is not going to be ideal when they go through the flat out sections here of this track. They're going to be sitting ducks compared to Stevie Ray, who's closing. I think by the time they get to the end of this straightaway, he is going to be back into P number 4. And right as they say that battle up towards the front was cooling off, and those drivers were waiting for the end of the race, Tom Laurie has gone into P number 1 and taken lead from Miles Crab. So you can tell I know exactly what what I'm talking about here on these broadcasts. Right as I say they're taking it easy, they start battling hard.
Yeah, and there's a big gap just opened up. I wonder if Krabs made a mistake there somewhere, maybe got off the track and lost about a second, because it was about 3/10, and now it's over a second gap between the two of them. But yeah, these five guys right here are just going to swap this back and forth. They've learned how the draft is going to work. Spolman got out front, and then the two cars behind Ray and Justice, as we get back to the replay here, as we see Lori moving to the inside, making the pass, going down into turn 1.
Heading into 2 now, deep on the brakes, way too deep on the brakes, and it's very thin margins heading into that corner. That's what bit Miles Crab there. I think that could have been a lot worse too. Thankfully, he avoided the gravel trap, which with the new rework gravel physics here in iRacing that we've had for the past few seasons would drag him down like an anchor. But that tiny little mistake really gonna hurt Miles Crab.
Yeah, that's just part of it, and but the on the plus side is you don't immediately lose the car as we get back to this 5-car battle here. It's going to be basically for the final podium position, as we see Wozencroft making his way around Andrew Love, with Spolman out front, Justice, Stevie Ray, and then Wozencroft with a big dive into the corner there. Well, that's turn 8 to get back out onto the oval, side by side with Justice, and back to the live action as they're still side by side.
That was seamless there. They were going side by side on the replay, and they're still going side by side right now on lap number 8, over halfway through this race, and side by side heading into turn number 4. I think Josh Justice is going to prevail in that fight, as these two have been battling hard. Seth Spolman is actually pulling away. He's now about a 1 second ahead of these two drivers right now. So Seth Spolman, who I didn't feel too confident about compared to Andrew Wozencroft and all the other clean race cars around them, Seth Spolman actually pulling a pretty big gap right now. Is that surprising to you, Charles?
A little bit, and I think it's just because of the battle behind him. I think he's able to just run his line, and the cars behind are slowing themselves down, battling through the corners. We see it quite frequently where they're giving him a gap. But once they get back in line, it's pretty easy to track them back down, because those 4 cars together will run faster than Spolman can by himself. So a little surprising, but not really that much.
Yeah, as they say, teamwork makes a dream work. I've definitely read that in a fortune cookie before. These drivers aren't going to be working together as teammates, so Miles Crab is closing back up to the back of Tom Laurie's race car. He's now going to go down the inside, heading into turn number 1. Nicely played there from Miles Crab to retake the lead of that race. It was about a 1.5 second gap that he had not very long ago after that mistake, heading through turn number 2. But again, it shows you the very powerful effect that the slipstream has here in these Spec Miata race cars. He was able to close that gap in barely any time, and has now retaken the lead of the race with a fairly textbook move heading into turn number 2. But I'm sure with less than 7 minutes left to go here on the clock, that fight is going to be far from over. Neither is this one. Stevie Ray going side by side with Wozencroft heading through the 3, 4, and 5 section right now. So Stevie Ray currently in the midst of an Andrew sandwich right now. He's got Andrew Love behind him and Andrew Wozencroft in front of him. May try and go for a move around the outside. Heading into turn number 6, is he bold enough on the brakes? Not close enough. Maybe trying to go for a switchback here, and every single time I look at the back of Andrew Wozencroft's car, I get a teeny tiny bit sad. The iRacing fabricators are going to need to drink a whole lot of Red Bull to get the race cars repaired after some of the damage some of these drivers have collected. But getting back to our attention, the point that I was going to make at the front of the field, Crab and Laurie are incredibly close pace-wise. They're incredibly close when it comes to track position as well, and with the championship implications on the line here, Charles, how do you think that fight is going to shake out at the front of the field?
It may come down to whoever's in second place on the last lap coming onto the oval. It just kind of feels like that. He's just watching Laurie. He's gained almost a half second just coming out of 8 down the oval into turn 1. I think it was about 4/10 he picked up there. So it's it may be where we start talking about some to use one of my favorite words from a former president. It's what we start talking about using some strategery as we get closer to the end of this race, and the last lap's going to be pretty critical.
you say that was a quote from a former president? In which case, I think I may know which president was. Was that Mr. W?
That was Mr. W.
Righty, I have a little story about that. It can be told, and it'll actually be coming up in about a month's time, a year anniversary of me graduating from high school. I used the George W. Bush quote, "I know the human being and fish can coexist peacefully," in my high school yearbook quotes, and I'm not sure if they printed it or not. I don't think my school could actually afford to print a high school yearbook. That was their excuse not to have that end up on text. But I think before we talk about some more Bushes, we should talk about this fight between Andrew Wozencroft and Josh Justice right now. So Justice and Spolman were very, very close, and it looked like Josh Justice looked like he would have been able to get the move done there on Spolman. However, now he's locked steady in a fight between himself and Wozencroft. That was a nice crossover move as it came out of turn number 8 to retake the P4 spot. However, those two are probably going to be side by side yet again when they head into turn number 1 and 2 in the not too distant future. Right now, Justice going to be a sitting duck, as is Spolman, who's well farther up the road right now with those two battling. They were pretty much right next to each other, Justice and Spolman were, not very long ago. However, after one lap of battling, that gap has increased to about a half a second and is diminishing right now. Wozencroft looking to try and get for a move done down the outside, heading through turn number 1 there. Maybe it looked like he was very close, possibly trying to eye up a move heading into turn number 2. However, he just wasn't close enough. Stevie Ray is getting a perfect view of this fight right now as he's continuing to try and hold off Andrew Love there right behind him. Seth Spolman with that tar patch on the front end of that race car. I guess you could probably describe it as some weird facial hair there that Seth Spolman is growing on the front of that race car. Very sad looking race cars that we have here at Homestead, Miami. And we have less than 4 minutes left to go here, coming up to 3 minutes left. So we don't have a whole lot of time left to go when it comes to this fight for the final podium position and the fight for the win of this race. We're getting to the point, we're getting to crunch time, and I think these drivers are going to break out their elbows here very soon.
Oh yeah, absolutely. These passes will get more and more difficult with every corner as we get closer to the end. I think Justice made just saw Wozencroft coming in from the inside and made a really smart move to just let him have the corner and just ease out and ease to the inside for that crossover. It was perfectly done. And so as we see these two guys, they're just saying, you know what, I'm just going to hang here. I think he's thinking now, I'm where I want to be. I'm about 2/10 behind and in second place, and I know that I can pick up about a half second on the last straight. So I think I'm just going to kind of hang out here. So we'll see if Crab has a response to that. If they start doing like we saw last season and they start basically letting each other try and pass, or if we're going to stay lockstep like this and Crab's just going to try and see if he can just outmuscle them down the final straight.
We got some drivers trying to outmuscle each other coming through the tight, twisty infield section right now. Justice still running in P number 4. Seth Spolman still holding on to that final podium position. However, it's going to be an uphill fight if he wants to maintain it right now. We've got some action all throughout this field. I think there's a Wayne Buttermore and Joaquin Effinger, who we haven't really looked at, as Andrew Love is very slow going down the back straightaway. I think he may have picked up a slowdown here. We're going to take a look at a replay to see what happened here to Andrew Love. I think it was that off-track excursion that he went through, and oh yeah, this is the off-track excursion in question. I think he picked up a slowdown there. Either way, grass on his tires and a slowdown is not ideal, especially in the second to last lap of the race.
Yeah, no, that's not where you want to be. That's we talk about the off-track grass will slow the car up to keep you from hitting the wall, but you also lose precious seconds by being over there. Yeah, just kind of watching Laurie and Crab. Laurie is looking to the outside here, coming down into 1. I think he's just kind of maybe throwing a dummy out there. So I'm just going to take a look, and I'm just going to see. I think he's kind of just setting up to see how close he has to be on that final run to know he can make the pass at the start-finish line.
We're seeing these drivers test the waters, see what they can do when they come to the checkered flag next time by. We are on the white flag here, and this is very tense there, heading through turn number 1. Nearly Andrew Wozencroft and Seth Spolman making contact yet again. This time, roles reversed, and Wozencroft being the punter and Spolman being the puntee. Speaking of, I think Spolman tried to give Josh Justice the old boot, scoot, and boogie heading through turn number 3, trying to do a bump and run in a Spec Miata. I do not think so. Those drivers are very close. You can cover all 5 of them with a blanket right now. I wouldn't discount Andrew Love possibly trying to get his hands involved in that fight. I think we'll try and keep an eye on that. However, at the front of the field, Miles Crab and Tom Laurie are pretty close, and they're going onto the flat-out last right now. Is Crab going to hold at? Laurie dropping back a little bit here, so now the gap is increasing a lot. Oh, it's increasing more.
Yeah, I think he had a little half spin coming out of the final corner and just lost all his momentum.
Oh no, that is going to sting. It looks like Miles Crab is going to be able to take the victory here unless Laurie has a massive turn of pace. He is closing quite a lot. Meanwhile, farther behind, Wozencroft is actually dropping back. There's a lot of shuffling behind, and Josh Justice going for a spin there. Miles Crab is going to win at the front of the field. Meanwhile, all hell is broken loose right behind them. Seth Spolman and Andrew Love now in P3 and P4. I mentioned that Andrew Love wasn't avid. He started this lap in P number 7. It looks like he's going to end this race in P number 4. Seth Spolman is farther up the road. He's going to have a fairly unobstructed run to take the checkered flag. And as much as it was a disappointment that Laurie had a very bad run coming back onto the flat out last, I think the drivers right behind absolutely made up for it. We're going to have to take a look at several replays to see what in the heck happened there as they went through the hairpin of turn number 8 and went onto that back straightaway. That was absolutely nuts.
Yeah, so we get here with Wozencroft behind Spolman, Justice up in the front, and we're coming into, looks like we're coming down into turn 8 now. So Wozencroft with a big dive. Oh no, contact there. A little more contact, some more contact with Stevie Ray. Spolman just says, you know what, I'm just going to go out here into the hard stuff, and then just a little spin. Oh, wow.
Stevie spun him. Oh, that is, not sure how to feel about that if you're Josh Justice. Getting spun out on the final lap of the race may leave you a little bit salty, but when it's a series admin doing it, you may want to hold your tongue. We're going to take a look at another replay. All these drivers going for kamikaze dives on this last lap. Hey, they all respect each other. They've been racing with each other for quite a long ways. And, ooh, yeah, actually, Josh showed him the door a little bit. Stevie Ray nearly getting forced off into the infield. Well, actually, not the infield, the runoff area on this back straightaway. We're going to take a look at Justice's point of view. This had to be insane from his perspective. You can just see Wozencroft come entirely out of the blue there. I'm sure Josh Justice is not very happy with how things shook out there on that last lap. However, from my perspective as a broadcaster, I think that finish was absolutely insane and amazing to watch as well. What do you think, Charles?
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry. As we see Wozencroft, just a big dive down into 8. I don't know. I think maybe Justice, I think he saw him the first time. I don't think he saw him that time and wasn't really expecting to come from that far back. Just made his normal turn into the apex, and there he was. And I'm not sure if that was, I think that might have been a combination. I won't give Stevie the entire bit of blame, although he will probably take it. He'll probably say that was my fault, but I think it might have been a little bit of him coming up and Justice coming down at the same time, and it was just him trying to slot in and just misjudge it a little bit.
Those drivers were knocking the crap out of each other, but I must say it was quite amazing to watch. I think we'll be able to get the results here in just a couple of moments' time from the Spec Miata race at Homestead Miami Speedway. A dramatic one for sure, with the last lap shenanigans that we were expecting at the front coming from the drivers running farther behind, as going to be Miles Crab taking the win there, less than a second separating himself and Tom Laurie. However, you gotta wonder if Laurie didn't have that half spin on the final final lap of this race, what may have been. And then nearly 20 seconds behind those drivers, it's Seth Spallman who runs at your podium in P number 3. That's Andrew Love in P number 4, Stevie Ray in 5th, Andrew Wozacroft with a bent-up race car and a sad-looking Miata there. He finishes in P number 6, Josh Justice in 7th, Mark Sherman in 8th, Wayne Buttermore and Joaquin Effinger are going to round out the 10-car results that we have here from this Spec Miata race. And Charles, we have Miles Crabb waiting in the interview waiting area. Would you like to have a chat with our winner here tonight?
Oh, absolutely. Let's do that. Let's bring Miles in here. Miles, congratulations on the win. Pretty, as far as the entire race was concerned, I think it was basically you and Tom Lori just got out to a really good start and kind of separated yourselves. We did see a nice 5-car battle behind you for that final spot, but for you guys, it was basically a matter of who was going to be the first guy coming out of the final corner. And I think Lori may have just caught the grass a little bit and prevented him from making that big charge down the oval.
Yeah, that was pretty much the name of the game. I had a little bit of pace. I don't know why. Maybe I was using the second. Sorry, I'm qualifying, so talking and driving is hard. I just had a little bit of a pace on him coming onto the oval. Like when I made that mistake, when he passed me the first time, he dropped wheels, and I sympathy drove off with him, and I was able to run him back down. A lot of it was the draft, 6/10 of it, but there was also just a couple places that I rolled a little bit more speed. So I was pretty confident if I was leading going into the last lap, I could probably run a fast enough lap to keep him behind me. And if I didn't, I figured he'd catch me in the banking and have to go high, and I'd still probably win. So I was not cruising. I was hitting my marks, but I was hitting 9/10 of every brake zone because I decided before the session to right foot brake and heel toe and no assist. That the MX-5, because it's faster upshifting, and I almost money shifted it on like the 3rd lap, but I avoided doing something stupid. And yeah, it was good racing with Tom. It make up for me bumping him out of the way. He got me one time, but it's all good. It's all fun.
There you go. Well, we won't keep you. We'll let you say your thank yous, and then we'll let you get back to qualifying. Yeah,
hi Mom, hi Jessica, Steven, and Ren, and whoever else is watching. Let's have fun in this draft battle in Spec Racer 4. Thank y'all for broadcasting, and thank Stevie for putting this on.
All right, thanks, Miles. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
And that was Miles Crabb. We'll give him an opportunity to qualify here, and we'll give ourselves an opportunity to load into that Spec Racer Ford race that we have coming up in the not too distant future next Sunday AD. I saw Brian Straczynski talking about that in the YouTube chat. Yes, that is a Mystery Science Theater 3000 reference I like to airdrop into these broadcasts every now and then. But we've got the SRFs coming up later on this evening. That is going to be a fantastic race, and hopefully you can stay tuned for that after these messages.
Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS. Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Alrighty everyone, welcome back here to part number 2 here of the Ray Esports Racing League tonight at Homestead, Miami on the Roval layout, the Road Course B layout to be a bit more precise, 2.24 miles in length, 104 degrees being the track temperature. I think that may be a factor in this race that we have coming up, which I think is going to be incredibly entertaining. Speaking of entertaining, you know, one of the sponsors that we have here from the Ray Esports Racing League ever since last season has been the Inside the SCCA podcast, which is a fantastic podcast for members of the SCCA to really sink their teeth into if you want to hear insight about the world of road racing or autocross from my perspective as well, being an autocrosser for 10 years. That's always my focus when it comes to stuff in the SCCA, but regardless of what piques your interest when it comes to the world of the ins and outs of the Sports Car Club of America, the Inside the SCCA podcast on the RacingWire Podcast Network is your home to find out information about it. It is episodes of it drop every single Friday, so you can listen to it on your way to the racetrack. We'd like to thank Brian Belansky and his support of this series through the Inside the SCCA podcast that he hosts. Always entertaining, week in and week out. You can say that about that podcast and this race as well. The Spec Racer Ford's always a draft monster here in iRacing. So Charles, I'll pass this off to you real quick. We saw a very exciting Spec Racer Ford race here 1 season ago, where the final real corner on this layout, that being turn number 8, the hairpin, turned into a parking lot. What are you expecting from this SRF race here tonight?
It may be the same thing. You don't know. It just depends on how the front of the grid is as we get onto that last lap. If we've got a nice 2 or 3 car battle, you may see some of that same strategic movements or lack thereof as they are all slowing down to try and let somebody else lead coming out of that oval. Or coming onto the oval, I should say. So yeah, it's going to be one of those. Obviously, you know, we talked with Miles Crabb a little bit after the race with his interview, and he said he reckoned it was about 0.6 of a gain in the Spec Miatas. I know for sure it's more than that here. These cars, and we'll see here with Tarantino, and if he's up to speed, we'll probably see him make up quite a bunch. A lot of time on Scott Russell. Just coming through this oval section, you can just kind of see the cars getting closer and closer together, just from the fact of the way these cars are aerodynamically configured, and it just ends up being a huge time advantage, especially as we see with Scott Russell sitting on pole now. I think he had a nice toe up from somebody else on his lap as we were getting ready for the next segment of the broadcast. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. We'll see what kind of strategy plays out during the course of the race, and if we have something similar to what we saw last season.
Scott Russell is showing some alien pace right now, which would make sense considering he briefly got abducted by a UFO heading through the final 2 corners on this layout as we were riding on board with Joseph Tarantino not very long ago. This man, Miles Crabbe, who won in the Spec Miatas earlier on this evening, is currently P3 as things stand at the moment. Actually, no, he's now down to P4. Josh Justice shooting up to second there at a 128.564. Still a decent gap he has there is Scott Russell. At the front, Miles Crabbe jumping up to second there with an unassisted lap as well, only setting a 134 top speed going down the long straightaways here on this lap, which is one of the slowest of the drivers the slowest of the drivers currently in the top 3 in this qualifying session. So nicely played from Miles Crabbe to jump into second. He has a tow right in front of him. However, that car farther up the road is not so close whereby he won't get held up in the corner. Seth Spallman is acting like the tow car to the man who actually he made contact with earlier on this night, that being Andrew Rosencroft right behind him. We'll see what Andrew Rosencroft can do, currently P8 in this qualifying session at a 130.042. We'll see what he can do coming around to start his final lap in just a few moments time. Actually, I think they will be taking a checkered here, less than 10 seconds to go here in this 15-minute long qualifying session. Rosencroft is not going to come back to start another lap, so it's make or break for Andrew Rosencroft. Will he jump up the field? Will he remain in P number 8? Coming across the line now. There you go, P6, not too bad.
Yeah, not too bad at all. Yeah, you can kind of tell the difference between the cars that got a really good draft and the ones that didn't. You see there's a bit of an advantage to getting that up to, anywhere from 4 to 8 miles per hour on your top speed on that oval section. So obviously that's it's a pretty big time gain. I think we're talking about at least a half second plus on a draft lap versus an unassisted lap, which really makes Miles Crabbe's lap that much more impressive, knowing that he didn't have any draft going on that lap and he's only 0.3 off pole.
I think we still have a few more stragglers left out on track, getting a bit more added seat time before we switch over to the race session here in a few moments' time. This race is going to be an interesting one, dramatic for sure, where slipstreaming is going to be the name of the game. We've described these SRF races in the past as being 120-mile-an-hour games of leapfrog. I think here at this track, nothing truer has ever been said, so we're seeing some more drivers get some added seat time around here. This track layout is used in real life. I believe it's mainly used for test sessions and stuff like that. I believe the Road to Indy series usually run this track as a testing venue here. We'll see the SRS run here tonight. And Charles, I think I'll let you handle the starting grid tonight.
Absolutely. Let's pull this up, and we've got on your pole is Scott Russell. Miles Crabbe is in outside of row 1. Joseph Tarantino and Josh Justice on row 2. Seth Spallman and Andrew Rosencroft is 5th and 6th. Mark Sherman, Stevie Ray, row 4. Joaquin Effinger, Wayne Buttermore rounds out your top 10. And Christian Kabanka is, can't tell if he's still in there or not. He did not set a time in practice or in qualifying. So trying to see if he's still in the session or not, or if he's gone.
Yes.
It kind of looks like he's there. Yep. So he'll be starting from the back, just going to see what he can do and have a little fun with it.
He's going to be all by himself on the back row of the grid. That is not ideal. You don't want to be all by yourself when it comes to a race unless you're up at the front. And I guess the same when it comes to not wanting to be all by yourself can apply to financial planning as well. And thankfully here with the Spec Racer Fords, that I think is probably the worst segue I've ever had in the history of me doing these broadcasts here on Ray Esports Racing League. But I mentioned here we have a fantastic sponsor for the Spec Racer Fords that supports here with the Ray Esports Racing League, as well as in the Spec Racer Ford Weekend Warriors series every single Sunday here on Apex Racing TV as well. That being the wonderful people over at Personal Wealth Solutions. Just like in racing, financial planning and investments require a team behind and experience as well. Personal Wealth Solutions creates custom investment and financial planning strategies for select individuals as well as businesses. With over 25 years of experience, their goal is not to have you feel like a number, but have you feel like they're number one. If you'd like to learn more about financial planning run by racers serving racers, head on over to www.personalwealthsolutions.com. We'd like to thank Personal Wealth Solutions for their generous support here of the Spec Racer Fords with the Ray Esports Racing League and the Weekend Warriors as well. And I think if Personal Wealth Solutions was, if I used Personal Wealth Solutions myself, I'd be drinking Fiji water during this broadcast instead of Deer Park. But I think before I make it, I should clarify at this point that Apex Racing TV is not sponsored or associated in any way, shape, or form with Deer Park water or Fiji water for that matter. But I think before I get a butt chewing here, I think we should talk about this race. Charles, I mentioned had this race maybe a 130-mile-an-hour game of leapfrog. I think, what are your final initial thoughts heading into this race that we're going to have here tonight?
I think if I'm driving in this race, I want to find a friend. Is what I want to do. Is I want to find somebody that I can work with, bump draft, and just race and just stay with for till the end of the race. We get to the white flag, then all bets are off, and then it's every man for himself. But the more the guys up front battle early, it's going to keep more and more cars in touch with that lead, and it's going to make things that much spicier. So, if I'm up front, I want to try and get out and work with the other guy, get an advantage, and then we'll fight amongst ourselves. But if they start fighting early, then it may be a 10-car battle for the win at the end of this race. So that's kind of the game plan. Is as long as these guys are fighting, they'll stay close together. Once they start working together, they should start spreading that gap out just a bit.
I have some espionage going on right now, getting a fantastic view inside Miles Crab's race cars coming through green flag here in just a few moments time. The Porsche pace car has made that turn to come down pit road, and now the field is underway. The green flag is out, the drivers are on their way, and it's a very good start there from our pole sitter, Scott Russell. He's going to be leading them heading into turn number one. The drivers single filing out inside the top five, but right behind them they're going side by side and nearly even three wide heading through turns 1 and 2. Now Josh Justice looking for a move to slot into P at number 2 down the inside. Heading into turn number 3, clears him there, and Scott Russell running wide on exit there. So now he's going to be chopped liver compared to Josh Justice, looking to take the lead of the race going on to this first back straightaway on the lap. Miles Crab is going to give Josh Justice a little bit of a bump there. It looked like they're nearly bump drafting heading through the infield section here of this circuit, and it's right now Scott Russell and Josh Justice doing some rally action. They came to blows heading through turn number 6. Josh Justice dropping back like a rock. He's not going to be very happy with the way he was raced there. Scott Russell may have just overcooked it heading into turn number 6, ran a little bit wide and ran his adversary out of road. And all that chaos that we've had so far in this race, and we haven't even gotten into the flat out section so far. Going onto that flat out section in the oval for the first time, it's Miles Crab leading them. We're going to take a look at a replay of what happened heading into turn number 6. We'll see Scott Russell on the inside, Justice on the outside, and there's a little bit of contact there heading into that corner. Thankfully, these Spec Racer Ford race cars are built like tanks, so that damage that he may have picked up, and that is not going to be a game ender for Josh Justice or Scott Russell there. However, a little bit of argy-bargy action here on lap number 1.
Yeah, just a little bit. The problem is as we see here is it did hurt Justice as far as his position, and he's only a couple seconds behind, but he's got a group of cars that he can draft off of. He's obviously showing a little bit of speed. Russell's dropped a few spots as well. As you see now, Justice has already got caught up behind him, running in 4th and 5th. So that's just a matter of working their way back up to the front. They'll catch Crab soon enough, and then they'll be back to that 3-car battle again. Obviously, Justice is a professional spec racer driver, so he knows how to handle the car, and I'm sure he knows exactly what it's going to take. Although he's got a little bit of damage on the right front, which is going to hurt his air a little bit, so he may have to stay tucked behind for a little bit longer than he may like.
And this is Christian Kabanka right now battling hard with Mark Sherman heading into the hairpin of turn number 8 in just a few moments time. Christian Kabanka is currently the heavy position gainer right now, and you can see him trying to go for the move on Mark Sherman around the outside into turn number 8. Wasn't close enough to get the job done. However, they're going to be side by side going on to the oval once again. Kabanka up 4 spots. He's got to try and make it 5 here in just a few moments time around the outside. It's going to be a drag race between these two, but with them going side by side, they're slowing each other up like they're dragging an anchor through asphalt, and now Stevie Ray is going to look to pick up the pieces there. Meanwhile, Tarantino has gone ahead of Crab at the very north end of the field. Some bump drafting, and that was Stevie Ray popping a wheelie going down the start-finish straightaway. I'm not sure what kind of trick that was in a spec racing Ford. Stevie Ray very lucky to get away with that one fairly scot-free. That, I think, is probably the strangest trick I've ever seen in a spec racer Ford. I once saw a car come across the start-finish line at Sebring with 2 of its rear tires hooked up into the air. Stevie Ray crossing the start-finish line to start lap number 3 with both front tires up in the air. Some alien activity going on here at Homestead.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what that was, but it's very interesting to look at. We'll have to see if we can see that again, maybe on a replay. But that's that was kind of crazy. Maybe he just didn't quite hit him squarely and caused the car to jump a little bit, but that was weird. I've never seen that happen with these cars before. Of course, we've seen one overturn itself at VIR, so it's a season for strange events.
I don't even know what Stevie Ray's reaction might have been when he got a little bit of air going down the start-finish straightaway. I'm not sure what Joseph Tarantino's reaction is going to be here in a few moments' time, where he may lose out on the lead to Miles Crab. They're actually bump drafting each other going into the high banks here around oval turn 3 and 4, roval turn 9 and 10. Now he's pulling out to try and get the move done. Will Spolman try and make it 3 wide before they go into turn number 1? Is Spolman backing out of it? Josh Justice in the midst of that as well. 2 by 2 going down the start finish straightaway. Crab is going to clear them heading through turn number 1 to retake the lead of the race, and Justice, with a fantastic recovery drive, is back up into second. So even though he has a little bit of a tweak on the front clip of that Spec Racer Ford race car, he has cut through the field with the hands of a surgeon to move back up into second. I think we're going to try and find the replay of Stevie Ray's aerial acrobatics. I think this may have been right after that, so this will be him. Actually, no, that's Wozencroft. This may have been at the very start. Wozencroft giving a bump to the inside barrier heading through the turn 3 and 4, turn 2 and 3 section at the very start of this race. But Stevie Ray, this may be his aerial acrobatics, and we're going to take a look at another angle of this. I didn't really know what I was seeing when I first saw this, giving a bump to Christian Kabanka, and holy cow, that is not ideal if you're one of these Spec Racer Ford drivers. Stevie Ray, I think, had his come to Jesus moment going down the start finish straight away there.
Yeah, he basically bumped him on the right rear tire, and the momentum of the tire just flipped the front of the car up, and it just a little bit of a wheelie, but yeah, it didn't quite hit him square. As we see, Kabanka just kind of moved about a half a car width over, just as Stevie was lining him up for a bump, and that's what happened there, as we see a battle up front for the lead.
We're having some very strange stuff happen here, and 3 wide going down the start finish straightaway. Oh my god, and they're still going to be very close heading into turn number 2 here in a few moments time. Kabanka in the midst of that, now running in P number 2 for now, as Tarantino looks to try and get a move done on him heading into 3 at the start of lap number 5. Kabanka putting on a fantastic show right now. Started this race all the way at the back in P number 11, and right now up 9 spots from where he started. A fantastic recovery from him, as is the case with Josh Justice right in front of him, up 3 spots from where he started this race. Was involved in that schmozzle between himself and Scott Russell at the very beginning, but he's cut through the field with the hands of a surgeon, and he's now leading this race, coming to the halfway mark in about 3 minutes time here. So we're seeing Wozencroft in pit lane, so he was the driver that spun off and hit the wall earlier on, so I think that damage may have been affecting him too badly. He's now coming into the pits to try and fix that. I'm curious where Wozencroft is going to exit out here, so I think these drivers may be good, as Justice Kabanka now battling for the lead of this race. Kabanka looks to try and take it from the American heading through the oval section here. Now Kabanka up into the double digits in terms of the positions he's gained right now, and Tarantino looking to follow him. Tarantino may try and go for a move here, going on to the start finish straight away in just a couple of moments time around the outside. This is going to be bold heading into turn number 2, 3 wide yet again. So all these drivers not fearing death in this race, and Miles Crab looking to pick up the pieces if anything goes dramatically wrong. Josh Justice moving back into that front running position. Kabanka still in P number 2, and Joseph Tarantino, one of only 2 drivers in this race to maintain his spot from start to finish right now. I doubt very highly that's going to remain the same until we take the checkered flag.
I think you're probably right. I think Miles Crab is probably just sitting back there saying, "Yeah, y'all fight. I'm fine where I am." Obviously, as long as they're fighting, he's not in really danger of having them get away because they're slowing down, and so he's basically just waiting back there and buying his time. So, it bodes well for a pretty dramatic ending to this race. You kind of saw Tarantino from the 3rd position on the last lap. He just laid on the brakes there, almost clipped Kabanka. So that's going to put him. Yeah, it was close. I couldn't really tell, but it looked like so that's going to put him down the order a little bit. Please get on board here with him now. We're coming down into the turn 8. Just whoa.
They did touch, yeah.
Yeah, just a little bit of a touch there. Not anything just overly dramatic. But it just kind of looked like maybe Justice slowed up a little more than Tarantino was expecting. They kind of checked the field up as we're back to 3 wide going into turn 1.
Miles Crab is feeling racy, trying to take the lead of the race from Justice. Crab started this race up towards the front. He's still running up towards the front, now in P number 2. It looked like he was trying to go for the move on Justice heading into 3. Spallman is getting a move put on by Scott Russell. Russell trying to break his way back into the top 5. He started this race from the pole, has had a disastrous race so far this evening, and he's now trying to claw his way through the field yet again. This, I think, is what caused it. This Spallman heading into turn number 2 here, and that is running very wide off into the gravel as well, so that set up Scott Russell to move his way back up into the top 5. So we're seeing drivers make some mistakes right now. We're in the section of the race where these drivers may be taking their foot off the gas just a teeny tiny bit and deciding, hey, we just need to wear away the laps and get to the checkered flag. We've already seen so much drama, and we just passed the halfway mark of this race, so we've seen so much go down so far. There's still a lot left to be decided here from the SRF race here at Homestead.
Yeah, and you can see Tarantino's still up with this group of 4 up in the lead. He has dropped down to 4th, but the little miss in the turn 8 didn't cost him a lot. He's able to make the time up just from these guys still fighting, and I think they're all really just kind of gauging this, prepping for that last lap, seeing where they have to be when the coming out of that final corner for the last time. What they're going to need to do in order to win this race, and it's everybody's just trying to figure it out, and then it's going to be, can I get in that position when it's time for it?
I think all these drivers have gone 3 wide pretty much every single lap so far in this race since lap 3. It's a fantastic show that these drivers at the front are putting on, but with them battling hard, Scott Russell and Seth Spallman in P5 and P6 are keeping tabs with them. They aren't closing the gap. However, it's currently about 3 seconds separating this man Scott Russell in P5 and Joseph Tarantino farther up the road. I wonder if the drivers up towards the front of the field may try and take it a teeny tiny bit easy, just seeing the drivers farther behind at risk of possibly catching them up. However, Scott Russell actually quite slow in terms of the straight line speed, and now Spallman looking to take advantage of that heading into turn number 8 on this lap down the inside. They're going to be slowing each other up yet again. Stevie Ray, I'm feeling deja vu for what happened earlier on in this race, so we may see another alien encounter here for series admin Stevie Stevie Ray in the not-too-distant future. Coming onto the start-finish straightaway, a little bit of a front-end tweak there, must be said, on the front of Stevie Ray's car. He may try and make it 3 wide as these drivers are at the front. Crab, Justice, and Kabanka, you can cover them all with a blanket, and they're going to go 3 wide yet again. If that's an idea of what the finish may be, I am not going to be sitting down when it comes time for the end of this race. Kabanka looking for a move on Justice, not close enough, and Crab looking to try and pick up the pieces. If these drivers come to blows, a little bit of contact there as Justice runs wide and Kabanka needs to check up, and Miles Crab nearly gave him a bump and run coming out of turn number 2. So yet again, all these drivers very close to front 4, separated by 0.8 of a second right now. 9 laps into this race, we're over halfway through, and we've already seen a whole lot of drama, and the field is still pretty much vacuum sealed together.
Yeah, and just was watching that battle with the front group as we get a replay here. Stevie Ray getting himself around Spolman, going high, coming down the front stretch through the start-finish line, going down into turn 1, just stays on the outside, gets a good run through that corner, sets himself up well for turn 2. But while that front group was battling as we were watching that replay, the group behind gained about a half a second on those cars. So if these guys just say, okay, you know what, we're just going to ride together, stay in line, the more those guys up front start battling, they can make up the time. So we can make this a much bigger finish, but they're going to have to be smart about it and just stay nose to tail for a few laps until we get closer to the end of the race.
These drivers just aren't going to take it easy. We may see some more 3-wide action here. Actually, it's close there. 3 cars covered by about 2 thousandths of a second going down the start-finish straightaway there. Very, very close, that's for darn sure. I couldn't spit it out, considering how close they were. Whoa, that was close, with Stevie Ray swooping around the outside of Seth Spolman, heading through turn number 1. Nicely played to move up into that final top 5 position. So I think right as we were saying, as those drivers were thinking, hey, if we work together, we may be able to catch the drivers running in the top 4. They start battling hard. There's a replay of Stevie Ray pulling off this great move, heading into turn number 1, giving a little bit of a boot scoot and boogie going down the start finish straight away, it must be said, but Stevie Ray sweeps around the outside. We couldn't really get a we may have to take a look from a rear shot of Stevie Ray just to see how close it was to contact between himself and Spolman right behind. That was very close, and they're still close heading into 8.
Yeah, coming down into turn 8, just Stevie's right all over his tail, kind of backs up a little bit there, give himself a little room into the corner, and it takes it a little wide. Stevie's really good about just getting the car wide on entry and exit. I think that's how he's maintaining a lot of his speed, especially going into turn 1. He's done a really good job of kind of working that outside line there going down into turn 1.
Just a defensive masterclass that we see a lot of drivers in the SRFs do, just to hold on to the positions at draft heavy tracks like this. You have to put on a defensive clinic. 5 minutes to go here, and these drivers are still racing as hard as they ever have. Justice still leading it right now. Crab in P2, Kabanka in P3, and some more shuffling right behind them. Stevie Ray holding off on that top 5 position now, but he's going for a spin heading through turn number 2. So the worst commentator's jinx I've ever pulled for series admin Stevie Ray. Right as I was saying, he holds on to that top 5 spot. He goes for a spin. His tires are probably rectangles after that big slide heading through turn number 2 and that dip into the gravel trap. He is going to have a whole lot of time to make up if he wants to get back involved in that fight.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult. This is obviously with being a draft heavy track. You get out there by yourself, and unless those guys in front start running side by side for a couple of corners, it's going to be very tough to make up that ground. It's not impossible, but it's going to be difficult.
Just looking, we were riding on board with Josh Justice there, and I saw the front end damage that Miles Crab has on that race car. All of that bump drifting has scuffed up that front end quite a lot. It's not the prettiest looking SRF race car, but as long as he's the one that pulls into victory lane when everything is said and done, he won't be complaining. Joseph Tarantino has lost track of the 3 drivers right in front of him. Currently a second behind Josh Justice, which is much closer than most things you see in most other racing series. However, in a race like this, where the front three are separated by less than a tenth right now. That is eternity. Maybe seeing some three-wide action yet again. No, it's continuing bump drafting there. So Miles Crab putting on a bump drafting clinic, helping out Josh Justice a lot in this race. He hasn't helped out Kabanka too much, so maybe some sour grapes between those two that are just convenient placing for Miles Crab to try and push the leader of the race, Josh Justice, in the number 99 car. You mentioned it earlier on in this broadcast, and we'll bring it up yet again. Josh Justice is a very good Spec Racer 4 driver in real life, and we're seeing his skills in the SRF from real life convert here into the sim. He still has that front end damage though, and he's going for a slide heading through turn at number 6 there, back off the track. Another terrible commentator's jinx from me, as he's at risk of losing that final podium position to Joseph Tarantino. I feel really bad for Josh Justice. I was going to say though, right before he went for a slide, that front end damage he picked up towards the very beginning of this race may affect him towards the end. However, this slide is going to be tough to recover from. He's still within a second of the leader of this race right now, that being Christian Kabanka, I believe. See that slide. It's tough. These Spec Racer Ford cars are hard to drive. Our producer Josh, who runs in the Weekend Warrior series, can attest to that. These SRF cars take a whole lot of finesse to drive around the track clean, efficiently, and quick. And we're seeing a masterclass from all these drivers, maybe going 3 wide yet again, going down the start-finish straightaway. Will Tarantino risk it? Will he back off? Will he give Miles Crab a bump draft here? It looked like they didn't really work together going down there. However, Tarantino slots into P2, and Justice is still not a very long ways off. So despite the fact that Josh Justice with that slide is down, he just isn't out of it.
No, not at all. He's just at the back of this group. So is every time these guys go down in turn 1, if somebody starts falling back, Tarantino a few laps ago, Justice just recently, so they go down side by side down into turn 1. It just slows them up enough that anybody that they could have broken off of this pack is just brought right back into the race. And so there's going to be a 4-car battle here for this. I think we're coming up to the white flag, so it'll be a 4-car battle at the end of this race between these 4 guys to see who's going to win. So it'll be very interesting to see how this all plays out.
This is a frickin' hornet's nest. That's the only way you can describe this. These Spec Racer Ford Bs are buzzing around these drivers, buzzing around the track, and it is going to be a matter of when, not if, someone gets stung here. We're going to be coming to the white flag in just a couple of moments' time, and thankfully for us, unlike what we saw in the Spec Miata race earlier on, where there was a battle farther behind and we had to divide our attention, our producer Josh having to be like a chameleon looking at 8 different things at once. Thankfully for our sake, we get to focus our attention on the battle up towards the front of the field, taking the white flag now. Tarantino is actually going to be leading them on this white flag lap. Will he be in the lead when we come back to take the checker? We'll just have to wait and see. The battle behind has kind of derailed, so we're seeing these 4 drivers at the front of the field dice around for all the positions they can. Crab and Justice side by side heading into turn number 3 there. They're still going to be side by side heading through the tricky right-hander of turn number 4, and we're going to see them go on to this first straightaway. It feels like it feels like a short straightaway compared to everything else on this lap. However, it is important as well. Josh Justice hoping not to have a slide like he had heading through turn number 6 not very long ago. Kabanka is in the catbird seat. He's going to have the most amount of draft, and he's going to have his foot buried on that accelerator pedal. He's going to be bending the floor pan going down onto the oval section here in just a couple of moments time. Is it going to be a parking lot like we saw last season? No, all those drivers going through turn number 8 at fairly reasonable speed. Joseph Tarantino, a little bit of front end damage on that Spec Racer Ford race car. He is going to be a sitting duck. Is it going to be Tarantino holding off? Is it going to be Crab? Is it going to be Justice? Or is it going to be Kabanka? We're coming to the checkered flag in just a couple of moments time. Crab is closing. Justice closing. All 4 of these drivers separated by less than a half a second now, and now Crab pulling out to get the move done. Justice is going to pull out as well. Kabanka is closing in too as well. It's a photo finish with the drivers at the front of Josh Justice ends up taking the win over only 21 hundredths of a second over Miles Crap in P number 2, and Joseph Tarantino, who started that final flat out blast in P1, ends up in the final podium position in P number 3. The drivers in the top 4 were only separated by a tenth and a half at the checkered flag after 21 minutes of racing action. That's just about what we were expecting, but still, that was incredible to watch here, Charles.
This is what we were expecting at Daytona a few weeks ago. So when we finally got it here at Homestead, yeah, just a great run. Justice took the draft off of Tarantino, then moved up to Crab, and then just jumped to the outside, the last possible second, and was able to make enough positions or enough room to take the win. And we get another photo finish back here for P5 and P6.
Man, we are getting spoiled here from this series. That's whenever it comes to these. Homestead, it's a somewhat odd track. Not a whole lot of people own it here in iRacing, but I think we should have it every single season because it just puts on some incredible shows season in and season out. We're going to take a look at another angle of this photo finish between Spallman and Russell heading into the final stretch here. Pulls out just in time, and oh my God, another photo finish. We have had so many photo finishes in the span of the past few days. Had the Kentucky Derby on Saturday, I think it was. Oh no, I'm not a fan of horse racing. And we had the Cup Series race on Sunday where they literally had to decide it with a photo finish for the first time since I think 1959 or something like that. And then a fantastic photo finish, 2 photo finishes in the Spec Racer Fords. Fantastic, awesome racing. And man, we didn't even get a chance to focus on the drivers farther in the back. I think Joaquin Effinger and Wayne Buttermore were very close towards the end as well. But man, Charles, it's exactly what we got. Some fantastic racing and some of these drivers running on the oval configuration here at Homestead. Imagine if we ran these Spec Racer Fords on the oval. That would be the most heart-pumping and most exciting 20 minutes of my life. However, I think I would be borderline having a heart attack considering the amount of passes we'd see at a race like that on the Homestead Oval.
I think what we would see is one mistake like we saw in the Spec Miata race, and about half the field gone somewhere during the first couple of laps of the race, just from trying to dice back and forth on the oval. It would be great, but it would be. I think this is better to be fair. You get some good lefts and rights, and then you get that good run down at the end. So we're getting here the replay with Justice, which is just a perfectly timed run. It's just all you can really say about it. Just did a great job of timing it and making that run. Crab looks like he's trying to go high, maybe squeeze him a bit, just share, but not enough. And Justice by 200ths of a second.
That was absolutely awesome, and I think we're going to take a look at the results here from the Spec Racer Ford race at Homestead, Miami. Action-packed from start to finish. I mentioned about halfway through that some of those drivers may have tried to take it easy. They didn't. They're just racing each other as hard as they could from start to finish. 20 minutes of heart-pumping action, and it was Josh Justice ending up taking the win. A fantastic recovery after 2 major setbacks. He wins here with the Spec Racer Fords at Homestead, Miami. That's Miles Crap in second, Joseph Tarantino in P at number 3. Christian Gabanka, who despite the fact he ended up 4th in that fight, still put on a fantastic show. Started this race at 11th, ends up in P number 4. Nicely played there from the driver of the number 178 car. That's Scott Russell, our pole sitter, in P5, Seth Spallman in 6th, Stevie Ray in 7th, Mark Sherman in P8, Joaquin Effinger in 9th, Wayne Buttermore in 10th, I should say, and then Andrew Wozekoft is going to round at your field in P number 11. And now, Charles, we have some drivers waiting in the interview waiting area after that action-packed race here for the Spec Racer Ford. So who do you like to have a chat with?
Well, let's talk to our race winner, Josh Justice. Josh, congratulations. We talked about it just a minute ago where you had a couple of setbacks during the race, but you stayed patient. You were aggressive when you needed to be, worked your way back up to the front, and was able to just had a perfectly timed run at the end to capture the victory.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a contact with Andrew Wozekoft on the second lap. That was unfortunate and probably my fault getting on the throttle a little too early. I didn't realize. I think I hit upon some kind of setup that just a lot faster through turn 1 and 2 than everyone else. Because I was just absolutely destroying everyone in the field, and I didn't realize until, the race started because we had gone from, the Miata to the pet racers. And so I wasn't in practice with anybody. I didn't realize until, really the second lap that I was just that much faster than everyone else in that one turn, or those 2 turns really. And that, it's unfortunate for Rosie. I didn't mean to ruin his race. But, I just got in the back of him, and the tiny little bump just sent him flying to the inside. After that, just a matter of climbing up through the field, staying in the draft. I made a mistake with like 3 laps to go, which put me in 4th. And, I know from last season that you actually kind of want to be in 3rd going into the final lap if everybody knows to tail like that. Because that's what happened in the Miata race last season in the newer Miata. And I won that race from 3rd place from about a second back of the leader. And in this case, the pet racers don't want to be quite so far back, and I wasn't. I was about, 2/3 of a second back or something from the leader. And that's why I didn't try to pass Miles in the hairpin. I just kind of faked like I would to keep Christian from sitting up the inside of me. And then I just got in line once I was confident that he would stay nose to tail and not, take me out of the race in the hairpin. And from there, you get on the throttle, stay in the draft, and just kind of, you have to very slowly unwind the wheel so you don't climb the banking too fast. And that's pretty much what I did. Last season, I went to the inside with a great dive. This time, the setup called for me to go to the outside. I have a fair bit of oval experience in iRacing from years back, driving the plate track with the cup cars. So, this kind of lap battle on the banking is something I'm actually pretty good at, despite the fact that I don't drive on oval in real life.
Well, Josh, congratulations. Let's go ahead and get your shout outs and your thanks out to everybody, and let you have a good night.
Yeah, I thank obviously everybody on my real racing crew and everybody associated with that. The guy got Eagle Canyon Racing, everybody that came out for the corner worker that came out when we had a shortage of corner workers and we almost didn't get to go racing, and then we had a whole bunch of lab men sign up to be corner workers after they sent out some kind of panicky email. And so really, very good everybody did that, and I appreciate obviously all the real world corner workers, just like I appreciate the announcers and broadcasters on YouTube and everybody who involved in making it so that we can rate whether it's in real life or the simulator.
All right, Josh. Congratulations. Have a good night. We'll see you next week.
Yep.
That was Josh Justice. You always have to give our praise to our producer, Josh, who does a fantastic job week in and week out. And we have one more driver waiting in the interview waiting area. So I think to break myself up from being a kiss-ass, we'll bring in Miles Kraft to have a quick little chat before we wrap things up. Miles, it's very close to pulling off the double here at Homestead tonight. Finished second, so very close to taking the checkered flag here in the Spec Racer 4s. But just talk us through that absolutely action-packed SRF race.
I knew I wanted to be third. It was just the top 4 kind of broke away. I thought it was going to be the top 6 there for a minute. And it was kind of like Daytona again. It was a really hot track, and it was really skatey on the brakes. Pretty much, if you didn't have your brake marker down, it was very easy to just kind of skate wide through the corners. You wouldn't lose too much time. You might lose a spot or something, but it was just, you couldn't like confidently get on the brakes and then drive out of the corner. It was very low grip. I mean, I figured it would be whoever was third was probably going to win it, if not fourth. Unfortunately, Christian had connection issues or something, so every time we bump drafted him, it gave us 4 X's, made the car pop a wheelie. So everybody but him had nose damage from trying to bump draft him, and we almost DQ'd him. So you kind of had to think about who you're going to work with. In hindsight, I should have let Josh through when he kind of sent it going into 1 and 2, coming to the white flag or just past the white flag. But I thought I would have to have backed off so much. I thought we were going to let Joseph win it easy. And then in the hairpin, I tried to time it, and Josh was doing the same thing. And we needed about 1 second between us and Joseph to catch him on exit. And Josh had the second, and I was 8/10 back. So I caught him in the middle of NASCAR 3 and 4. And I popped out and tried to not get side drafted. And then once Josh got beside me, I pulled away from him. And then once he got halfway alongside me, I pulled back to him. And we stalled out right with him 24 thousandths of a second ahead of me.
So you brought up a very good point there with Kabanka blinking in and out and having a difficult time bump drafting him. Would you say that was the sketchiest part of the race we had here, or was it just trying to get these cars woed up with the hot track conditions?
No, we went into 3 wide one time, and all 4 of us missed our brake point. That was the sketchiest point. You can, when you're on the brakes, you can kind of hear if anybody else is locking up, and all I heard was locked up wheels. But we survived. And yeah, just we were all playing nice. If somebody would have tried to trap somebody behind another spec racer, it would have been a disaster. But we all played nice and fair, and Josh got a well-deserved win.
Well, thankfully for you guys, I think next time out at Laguna Seca is going to be a little bit less hot than we saw here tonight under the Florida sun. So how do you think that race is going to be in a week's time?
Whoever wins is going to be the person who doesn't spin out in the corkscrew lap 1. Especially, oh Jesus, it's going to be Spec Racer and Formula Ford for me. So yeah, it's going to be who knows their car good enough of when it's time to send it, when the tires will take it. So should be fun. Laguna's one of the more popular. We should have a lot of people show up for that one, and we all have a lot of laps around it because it's the rookie track. So we should all be pretty good.
I think we have some whiskey somewhere here in the commentary booth, so if you need it after next week's broadcast, I will direct you to where that is. That's going to be a challenge in 1 week's time. We hope to see you on track for that race in a week's time. Miles Crab, thank you for joining us. We asked you this before, and we'll ask you this yet again, just for convenience sakes from our perspective. Anyone you want to give thanks to or shout at? Anyone different over the past hour that you want to thank?
Well, now you're calling me out for things. I'm just going to say hi to my family at home, pull a Scott Pruitt. And thank y'all for broadcasting. Thank Stevie for all that, for hosting all this. And yeah, it's a whole lot of fun to do these races. So I'll see y'all at Laguna.
Well, it's a hell of a lot of fun to call them as well. I can imagine from your perspective as one of the drivers, it is intense as well. Miles, congratulations on the win in the Spec Miatas. Congratulations / commiserations on the P2 result here in the SRFs, and we hope to see you back out on track in a week's time. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And that was Miles Crab, very close to pulling off the double here at Homestead. And I mentioned there that we'll be heading to Laguna Seca in a week's time. Charles, with the SRFs and the Formula cars, what kind of racing do you think we're going to see in a week's time?
I mean, well, you know, Miles said it pretty well. Is the corkscrew is always a point of reference, a point of to highlight for that race. But you got a few corners you got to navigate before you get there. Turn 1 and 2, Andretti hairpin is always a challenging corner, especially when you get started on the cold tires, and you get down in there 2 wide a lot of times, maybe 3 wide sometimes. Trying to navigate your way through there to get out, and then turns 3 and 4. 3 is a pretty tight right-hander. 4, obviously, you're trying to just maintain your speed, build it up to go up to 5. That kink before that takes you up the hill, about halfway up the hill, going up to the corkscrew, is always one of those. It's kind of another one of those single line corners that you just have to be just inch perfect on. And you have to get that right every time you go through there, or you're just going to kill your car. So you know, it's going to be a fun race. And he's right. There's a lot of laps from these drivers because it is one of the rookie tracks. It's been free content on iRacing forever. So you know, lots of you know, laps done there. So it'll be fun. The guys will put on a good show as they always do, and we'll see who comes out on top.
There's probably going to be some frayed nerves there as well. Close quarters racing at Laguna's. My voice is finally giving out here. At the Ray Esports Racing League, I was going to say how that was going to start the final trifecta of races that we have here from the season, but clearly the vocal cord gods are trying to object against me, so I think before my vocal box or vocal cords completely blow out, I think that would just about do it. This is absolutely terrible. I apologize for this. So for myself, Ron Mons, Charles Bichelle joining me in the commentary booth, Josh Wilkie doing a fantastic job in the virtual production hauler, and my poor vocal cords, I say thank you all so very much for watching. I'm sorry to any dogs I annoyed with my high-pitched squeaking there a few moments ago, and we'll see you all again at Laguna Seca in 1 week's time.
Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.